swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
You may take your seat. Can you speak loudly and clearly for the jury?
Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Kelsey Guay, and I'm a senior digital forensic examiner.
Okay. And where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed by Roloff Digital Forensics, which is a small private company based out of Spokane, Washington.
And tell us a little bit about your background and training in the area of digital forensics.
Sure. So starting at the beginning, I graduated from Portland State University with my Master's of Criminal Justice in 2016. During that time when I was in grad school, I worked for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office in their Family Justice Center, which is a domestic violence clinic. After graduating grad school, I became employed with the Portland Police Bureau, which is in Portland, Oregon. I was employed as an investigative crime analyst. So for about 3 years, I supported the entire detective division, and I worked on anything from call detail records, mapping cell site location, developing frequency analysis, looking at pattern of life. I would also help them review search warrant returns, so things like when they get data back from Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and I would do some open source, just looking at people's profiles online to help an active investigation. After that, I was the ICAC analyst, and ICAC stands for Internet Crimes Against Children. So during that time, I performed phone extractions. I went on scene to search warrants where there was an internet crimes against person suspect. I would do RAM captures and router examinations. I would also review every single cyber tip and any search warrant returns that came back for those cyber tips. After that, I was the digital forensics lab manager. They civilianized the unit. I was a civilian employee my entire time with the police bureau. And so for about the last a little under 2 years, I managed the digital forensics lab, where I would perform extractions, and I led a team of 5 examiners in doing digital forensic extractions and analysis.
Can you tell us approximately how many hours of training have you had specific to the review and analysis and interpretation of call detail records and cell site location information?
I have a general 400 hours of training just related to all kinds of things: digital forensics, CSLI, cybersecurity. If I had to guess, I would say maybe 100 hours dedicated to cell site location information.
And with respect to call detail records and cell site location information, how many sets over the course of your career of call detail records have you reviewed for casework?
Like actual files, I don't have an exact number. I would say close to 1,000, if not over. Some of the cases I work on can have 10 and more phone numbers, so each case can get quite expansive pretty fast. So I would say maybe roughly 1,000 different sets of records.
And with respect to mapping of call detail records, can you tell the jury approximately how many times you've had to map cell site location information from call detail records?
Sure. I would say maybe about half. When I was working in law enforcement, they don't always get location information for a call detail record. Sometimes they just get records without mappable location information, and they want like a frequency analysis, looking at patterns before event of interest. So I would say I've probably half of the records I've reviewed.
Have you previously offered testimony in court concerning this subject matter?
I have.
Okay. And have you previously been qualified as an expert in digital forensics, specific as to cell site location and call detail records?
In Oregon, it's a little bit different, but in at least one, they did provide me as an expert. Most of it was my employment at the police bureau.
At this point, Your Honor, I would tender the witness.
State wish to voir dire the witness as to her training or experience.
No, sir.
Is there any objection to her ability to provide an opinion in the field of digital forensics?
No, sir.
Members of the jury, while this witness testifies, she will be permitted to provide you with an opinion in the field of digital forensics. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Guay, in this case, did you review call detail records that were provided or obtained by law enforcement?
I did.
Okay, and specific, can you tell the jury what records you reviewed?
So when I started working on this case, I was given a lot of different data, just so that I could see everything that had been obtained by law enforcement. However, my focus was on Donna's cell phone records, so that's where I kept most of my focus, was on her records. However, I reviewed all of the data, so essentially there's a lot of AT&T records encompassing various time periods, some of them duplicate of the same time period. There were also Sprint records. I think there was also some Verizon and T-Mobile records, so there was a lot.
Okay. Now, we did not provide you with the tower dumps. We just provided you specific with the records of the individuals that were obtained by law enforcement, correct?
Correct, from like a company like AT&T, T-Mobile, related to a specific phone number.
Did you also review any testimony that has been provided in the past by Sergeant Corbitt?
Yes.
Specifically, what sets of testimony did you review?
There was, I guess from this trial, 2 PDFs that I was given discussing testimony from this trial. I think there was also potentially other testimony from previous events that I skimmed because it wasn't necessarily relevant to what I was asked to look at.
Were you provided the information, were you provided call detail records that included cell site location for Harvey Adelson?
I was.
And specifically for Donna Adelson?
I was.
And Charlie Adelson?
I was.
Were you also provided with a PDF of a PowerPoint that was prepared by Sergeant Corbitt?
I was.
Okay. What were you asked to review related to this PowerPoint?
So to just look through all of it, there was about 350 slides, so I kind of went through it slide by slide, but my specific focus was on slides 26 and 28, which were charts of a frequency analysis.
Would it be helpful to the jury to see specifically what you reviewed and the work that you performed?
I believe you guys have probably seen this already, but yeah, it might be helpful to have a visual.
Can you pull that up, please?
Do you want me to do the present?
Yes, please. And if you go back a couple slides, please.
To the beginning?
I'm sorry?
To the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
So, what are we looking at here?
So this is a screenshot of the folder that contained the document that I focused my analysis on, because this document was related to Donna's cell phone number, her records. In this document, after reviewing all of the different ones, I realized that this document contained the most data. It started, I believe the records started January 1 of 2014, and they went through May of 2017. So it contained both time sets that were seen on slides 26. Additionally, this data contained seconds in the timestamp. And so me as an analyst, when I'm looking at CDR documents, I always prefer to get the document that has the most information, and in this case, to have a timestamp that includes seconds.
Why is that important?
I mean, it's important for different reasons depending on the case. If you are very interested in building like a chronological timeline, having seconds, right? Because we have 60 seconds in 1 minute. So if your call detail records only show you the minute and not the second, things could be coming in showing the same minute, but you don't actually know which happened first without the second timestamp. So
Okay.
different reasons why it can be important.
And in that same note, I think your next slide shows what you obtain when you, or what you see when you open up this file.
Correct.
Can you show that to the jury, please?
I can. So you might have also seen something similar to this earlier in this trial, but this is what that document looks like when you open it up. This is just the first 3 rows because this document, like I said, goes through 2017. There are a lot of rows in this document. So this is just a glimpse of what it looks like when you open it up in a text document, which is the native format. This is not very easy to work with as an analyst. You could take this and you could put it into an analytical program and run some calculations on it. However, when I looked at this in a little bit more detail, and there are slides, I realized this data was kind of messy. And by messy, I mean I wouldn't necessarily just trust putting it into a program and trusting the numbers that came out. So I took this document and put it into Excel.
So the programs that you're describing that this data could be put into, are those referred to as tools?
Yes.
Okay. And so since this was messy, how did you import this into Excel?
So when you open up Excel, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Excel. I live in Excel, so I'm very familiar with it. But one of the options when you open Excel is there's a data option and you can import data. There's a little tool that helps you bring in text files into Excel. And this one is a great one to bring in Excel because it might be hard to see, but there are commas between each of these values. So this is what's known as a comma separated, type file. So it translates very nicely into Excel.
And can you show the jury how that looks when you put it into Excel, please?
I can. So this is that exact same first 3 rows, and this is what it looks like in Excel.
How does the software, does Excel know how to separate that those 3 lines into making this correctly?
So essentially there's like a little walkthrough tool when you import data into Excel from a text file, and it will show you a preview. Is this what your data should look like? And you can say, yep, it's using a comma, it's displaying correctly.
Is there anything that you have to do with the times to adjust them for Eastern time?
Yes, so this specific file, it's again probably very small, but in column 2 or B, the header says connect date or con date time UTC. So this is very common for call detail records to come in UTC, and if they explicitly say UTC, you know it's UTC. So for these records, the times of interest were in the summer, so I knew that this would be in Eastern time. So I was able to add a column in Excel. Again, very easy to do this in Excel. Add a column, write a quick formula, do that time conversion so that I could make sure that, because if you have a call that's in UTC, it might be showing on a different day, but if it kind of happens within that, plus or minus 4 window of when days change, I wanted to make sure I was looking at the right dates for Eastern time.
Okay. And then and you did this for what data?
I did this for Donna's records, the file that we had identified on that very first slide.
Okay. And then did you also do similar analysis for Charlie's call records?
I looked at his phone records. I did not go quite in depth as what I did with Donna's, but I did look at his in Excel as well.
And I believe the next slide is that frequency chart?
No, the next slide is essentially an example of kind of the messiness that I was referring to earlier.
If you could show the jury that, please.
Yes, of course. Would you like me to explain?
Yes, please. What are we looking at now?
Okay. So this is that exact same document. Now, instead of just looking at the first 3 rows, we're looking at rows 1 through 9. And this is at the very top of the document. So as I open up any kind of call detail records, I want to get an idea of what the data contains. So in this example, that red box is just showing 3 unique rows of data. But when I look at these 3 unique rows, I see a couple things that indicate to me that these 3 unique rows might all be referring to the same one call event. And by call event, I mean like an incoming or outgoing call. So if a program takes this, it might see this as potentially 3 different call events. Whereas me as a human, I can realize, oh, there's indicators that tell me that this is one call event.
Is there any way you can zoom in on that a little bit?
Not in the presentation mode.
Okay, if you could back out of the presentation mode and zoom in so that the jury can see what you're talking about, please.
I will do my best. I don't know if this is getting any better or worse.
Okay, so the top line that we're looking at there on line 6. What does the data from that line of call detail records tell you?
So essentially, when I look at row 6, I see the connect date time, which is when the call was initiated, whether it's an incoming or outgoing call. I see a few things. I see the seizure time, which is the time it takes for the network to set up the call, the elapsed time, which is ET. That's how long the phones would have quote-unquote connected. I see the originating and terminating number. So, oops, a little too far. There we go. Originating number, so the call that it was started on, terminating the call, the phone number that the call was ending on. And then because this is a screenshot of Donna's phone records ending in 0997, we also see the IMEI and IMSI. Those are just the, it's like a VIN number for a phone, is an IMEI, International Mobile Equipment Identifier. And then the IMSI is the International Mobile Subscriber Identity. And that's how the network can tell that you are allowed to be on their network, right? And make calls on the AT&T network. We also see the call type, CT, mobile terminating is what that MT stands for. So again, it reinforces the fact that we see Donna's phone number in the terminating column, and then it's reinforced by that MT. In the feature, this is unique to AT&T records. So this is some random, they look like maybe what might be random letters, but they all have meanings. And there's a record key that if you're not super familiar with what those letters means, you can go and look at that record key. But essentially what this is saying in human speak is that the number calling, there was number identity present, that's that NIOP. There's the CN or CFNA, which is call forwarding, it wasn't available, that it couldn't reach the other party. And then you see that VM, which just means voicemail was involved in this transaction.
So the next line, so the features, what does that tell us about this call?
It tells me that there was an incoming call to Donna's phone and it was sent to voicemail.
Okay, and what does the subsequent 2 lines indicate?
So the next 2 lines are related to this initial call event. So I can see that this next one has voicemail. I also can see that this is the forwarding number, which is to forward it to the voicemail box. And then if I go all the way back, the SO and the ST are service originating and service terminating. So these are not human generated, these are network generated logs. So that's what the SO and ST stand for. And then if I go back and I look at the times, the thing I notice is that for those following 2 service calls, the timestamps are the same. And all of this, so while the connection time is that what would be 2:52 p.m., that's when the call would have come into her phone and gone to voicemail. Then those second 2 with the identical timestamps are essentially just multiple legs of that activity. So as a human, I can see that these 3 lines are all related to one event, an incoming call that was routed to voicemail.
Okay, if you can go back to the presentation mode, please.
Of course.
And then let's look at the next slide. What do we see on this slide?
So this is slide 26 that I referenced at the beginning of my testimony. So this was one of the things that they had asked me to specifically review.
Okay, and the number that's highlighted, whose number is that?
I believe that is Donna's phone number.
And according to the state's slide 26, how many times, well, what's the time period of these records, of this chart?
So each phone number has a slightly different time period, but for this particular phone number, the date range was May 2nd, 2014 through July 20th, 2014.
And according to the tool that was used by Sergeant Corbitt, how many times did Charlie Adelson's device attempt to communicate with Donna Adelson's device?
So it's my understanding that this would contain both directions. Charlie calling Donna, Donna calling Charlie, and both connected and attempted, right? So if it's a voicemail, or if it actually, like, there was an elapsed time of, let's just say a minute, right? So this would theoretically contain all of that activity. So based on this chart, it appears that this tool said that there were 417 unique communication events.
Did you take any steps to verify the accuracy of this number?
Yes. So because this slide particularly was focused or created using Charlie's phone records, I went through all of those files that we had described earlier and tried to see if I could find any one particular file for Charlie's phone records that contained this entire time span, May 2014 through, or May 2nd, 2014 through July 20, 2014. Again, going back, there were a lot of different records for this case. I couldn't find one specific file that encompassed this entire time frame. I did find 3 different files for his cell phone number. So essentially, I had to take 3 different files to try to recreate this. And when I was doing that, I noticed that at least between 2 of the files, there were a few dates that overlapped, right? So when law enforcement gets a call detail record return, they'll ask for specific dates. So for example, you might ask for May 1 through June 20, and that would be one return. And then on another date, you do another warrant or a subpoena, and you ask for June 18th through July 18th, right? A month's worth of data. So when I found these 3 files, I noticed that there were at least 2 files that had some dates overlapping.
Did you remove the overlap when you conducted this manual examination?
I did, and the other thing I noticed was that out of the 3 files, 2 of them were in local time, so Eastern time, and then one of them is in UTC. So again, I had to, try to see if I could make this a continuous May 2nd through July 20th, taking out any overlapping dates and making sure, again, that the dates were all correct by seeing everything in Eastern time.
What did you do did you try to recreate this chart that Sergeant Corbitt prepared?
I did try to recreate it by how I just explained.
And were you able to?
I wasn't able to come up with 417.
Can you explain to the jury what you did beyond what you've already described and what number you got to?
So I did 2 different steps. I did the one that I just explained where I converted everything to Eastern time, ensured that there were no dates overlapping, and so that it was essentially just showing me, May 1 through July 20. And I think when I did that and I took out these extra overlapping dates, and then I filtered to just only look at the incoming and outgoing calls. I did not deduplicate at all. That what I just explained, right, where I said that three for potentially one event. Did not deduplicate. I just put a filter for Charlie and Donna's cell phone numbers. And at that point for these dates, I think I got maybe 383 unique call events. And that was, again, taking out the overlapping dates. The second step I did was I thought, well, maybe the tool didn't do that, and it just took everything and it didn't deduplicate the dates. So I tried it again, and I got 393 when I did not take out any extra dates. So, and these were just calls. I was only looking at calls.
And these were, did you do anything to determine whether or not these events went to voicemail?
I did not.
Okay. Did you take this a step further to determine whether or not there were actual communications versus actual or attempted?
Sorry, could you?
Sorry, it was a poorly worded question. So the 393 that you identified is both connected and attempted.
Correct.
Is there a way to determine whether or not something is attempted versus connected, aside from the voicemail flags that we talked about a few moments ago?
So the voicemail flags are going to be the best indicator of if somebody didn't connect, because AT&T is telling you that the phone call went to voicemail. So as an analyst, that's, to me, the best indicator. Another indicator that you can use, I think different people have different thoughts on this, but if it's a very short duration, like let's say under 10 seconds, could the phones have connected and there's just actually no communication, or it may be you know, you answer but you don't hear anything, so you hang up. So different analysts will use different amount of elapsed time to determine, like, you know, I think some people will say, I think everything over 30 seconds indicates there was, you know, actual communication. So people have different thoughts on it, but I like to see, you know, if it's 2 seconds to 0 seconds, there probably wasn't any actual communication.
Now, when reviewing specific to this, to Charlie's records, did you then go back and dedupe everything to determine the actual and attempted calls?
I did not for Charlie's records.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Donna's phone records. If we could advance to that, please.
So this is slide 28.
Okay, and according to this, there were, what was the time period of this chart?
So this chart is focused on, would have been created using Donna's call detail records, and the contact at the top that's highlighted is Charlie's cell phone number, and the date range that was used to generate these records was June 23rd, 2014 through July 22nd, 2014. Again, I did the same process like I did with Charlie's. I went to go look through all the data to see if I could find a file that would cover this date range and only this date range, and I was able to find a file that covered this date range.
Okay. And when you went through the process that you've already explained, manually going through the records, were you able to determine how many unique call events took place during this time between Donna and Charlie?
Unique. So for this one, I took the original file that I mentioned and I just looked at the filters between Charlie and Donna's phone number, and I was able to recreate the 80 when I just look at the, you know, the totality of the data. Taking a step back, all the way back to that slide 1, I mentioned that record for Donna contained data from 2014 through 2017. So that particular document covered both of the time frames. It covered this one, which is June 23 through July 22, 2014, and it covered what was in Charlie's records, which was May 2nd through July 20th. So I used that document that I showed you guys at the very beginning to dedupe. So I went through that document. I put the filters for Charlie and Donna's phone numbers, and then I went through each line during those time frames to determine, like, is this a voicemail activity? Is this just AT&T duplication? Is this an actual unique call event? So that was the document that I used, focusing on these two parties' phone numbers. And I went through each line by line, and removed manually any rows that I believed to be referencing the same call event. So when I did that, I got, for this time frame, deduplicated, and this would be attempted and connected, right? So it's including the voicemail. It's just noting that there's only one line for that voicemail, not potentially 3. I got 69 unique call events that would be connected and attempted.
So the failure to manually go through these records resulted in an overinflated report in these frequency reports.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to this data, and I don't think we have any more slides.
No, we do not.
Okay, so get the lights, please.
Would you like me to unplug it?
Yes.
Okay.
In addition to this part of the data, did you also review cell site location information for Donna Adelson's phone, specifically on July 18th of 2014?
I did.
Okay. And did you identify the cell phone towers that likely provided coverage to Charlie Adelson's home on July 18th of 2014? The towers that he could have been connected to from his residence.
So I was not provided with like an AT&T master cell site list, but I mapped the records for July 18th that are available in the AT&T document.
Who has access to the master records?
Law enforcement.
So presumably law enforcement would have gotten those records and taken a look at what cell site, what towers and sectors would correspond to Charlie Adelson's residence.
Correct.
Okay. And in your review of the records, the call detail records that were provided to you, obtained by law enforcement, did Donna Adelson's handset ever connect to a tower that could provide coverage to Charlie Adelson's home on July 18th of 2014?
No.
With those same records, was there any instance on July 18th of 2014 where Charlie Adelson's handset and Donna Adelson's handset were connecting to the same tower?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.